Hello and welcome to the Cambridge Union for tonight's climate change debate. We are particularly grateful to AstraZeneca for sponsoring tonight's debate and providing us also with one of the speakers on the motion. For those of you who've not been before, the rules of the debate are simple. 3 speakers will speak on each side of the motion, alternating between proposition and opposition. Between every round of speakers, every pair, there will be a round of floor speeches, where you, the members, will get a chance to have your say, with a speech in proposition, opposition, and then abstention on the motion. These speeches, I should advise you, should be shorter than the main speeches, about 1 to 2 minutes in length. During any of the main speakers, you have the right to attempt to intervene. You do this by sticking up your hand and saying, on that point, or point of information, or if I may, and if they accept you, please wait for a microphone to get to you before making your point. There are prizes for the best speeches tonight, and the first prize is a group photo shoot at Dumbleton's Photography, and the runner-up gets a meal for 2 at Crepe Affair. So if you are on the fence about speaking, that is your incentive. So we come to the motion, which is short only for the sake of pith. But in case there is any doubt or any pernickety abstention speeches, yes, the motion is about climate change. The motion is that this House believes it is too late. I call the first speaker for the proposition, Juliette White. Juliette White is the Vice President for Global External Sourcing at AstraZeneca. She joined the company in 1990 after graduating with a degree in psychology. She is currently leading AstraZeneca's Brexit preparations for supply chain and therefore knows something about managing an impending crisis. Juliette, the floor is yours.
Mr. President, thank you very much. So as the first speaker this evening, I'd like to join Cambridge Union's Society Committee and the other speakers in welcoming you here to this debate, focusing on the dire state of our planet and asking the very simple question, is it too late? AstraZeneca partners with Cambridge Union Society once a year for this important science debate, and our goal is to think about this hot topic together in an area where we can focus our attention and research. As a science-led company headquartered here in Cambridge, we employ over 70,000 people worldwide, and our absolute core purpose is to improve health with a focus on non-communicable diseases. So what I want to do first is reflect on the motion itself, and perhaps, as all good students, slightly reframe the question. I do agree that this is the defining issue of our time. Climate change and environmental-related issues such as waste and water scarcity and their impact on our planet and our people absolutely define what is around us. And I'm aware of the surge in opinion. But I'm going to argue it's not too late if we take collective action but act urgently. I'm here this evening to propose that doing nothing is simply not an option, and I agree that we are perilously close to it being too late. We all share this planet. This is the decade to act. It's the climate decade. It's not only down to individuals and campaigners, but deep structural change is needed. It's about responding with bold and immediate action on the climate crisis, and frankly not standing back but waiting for the negative impacts of human behaviour to become irreversible. So you may be sitting there thinking cynically, what can a company like AstraZeneca do to contribute positively to change? Some of you may think, big, large, global corporation, you're part of the problem? Shareholders, short-term profits, cost to society, whatever. I want to show you that we have a long-term, socially responsible perspective that while supporting our core business ambitions to ensure that we serve the purpose of a healthcare company. And there are 2 key areas that I want to focus on this evening. One is science, and the other is the deep connection between a healthy planet but a healthy human. We're committed to operating in a way that recognises the interconnections between business growth, the needs of society, but also the limitations of this precious planet. We recently announced our Ambition Zero Carbon Strategy, which aims to eliminate emissions from all of our operations by 2025, underpinned by $1 billion investment. and we plan to be carbon negative across our entire value chain by 2030. That is bringing forward our decarbonisation plans by more than a decade. And I'm sure you're thinking this all sounds really promising, but what does it mean in practice? From a personal perspective, I'm one of the people whose job it is to turn these bold ambitions into reality. And yes, that is a daunting task, but it's a huge opportunity to drive change in a way that we can have real impact beyond business short-term goals. And I think it's fair to say it's causing me and others to think about how we do business differently and how we operate in society differently. I've been very proud to be part of AstraZeneca for 30 years, and I've seen the urgency in this agenda evolve over time. It's now central to all of our decision-making, whether that's capital or day-to-day life. To achieve a zero-carbon ambition, we have to double energy productivity, move to reusing renewable power for both heat and power, and switch to an entirely electric vehicle fleet. The $1 billion programme will include moving all operations to zero carbon, launching the next generation near-zero global warming potential respiratory inhalers, and the planting of 50 million trees under an AZ forest programme. And that's not just another offset programme. Our plan sets out to make our operations responsible for zero carbon emissions by 2020, rather than relying on an offset. Now, I recognise that the total emissions from our partners and our whole value chain is much larger than our direct operations. So our pledge to become carbon negative across our entire value chain by 2030 requires us to engage with our suppliers and partners in fundamentally different ways, and they have to eliminate carbon removal options. Since 2015, we have reduced our carbon emissions from operations by almost a third, and our water consumption is down by a fifth. And that's happened because we make fundamental structural change. So let's get back to science. Firstly, I think we all fully accept the science of climate change and the adverse effect on human health. And that's not a surprise. We're led by science. It's at the core of what we do as a business. For us, for me, the position and actions we take on climate are not just about mitigating the impact of our operations and business on the environment. They go to the heart and the purpose of being a company that aims to benefit patients and people across the world. I believe there's a strong connection between a healthy planet and healthy people, and yes, healthy business. But it's not about shareholder returns. It's more importantly about sustainable business activities that provide innovative medicines and act as a responsible employer, but also to a partner to governments and communities. Yes?
Thank you. This all sounds wonderful, but how does it explain why it's too late for the planet? I think that's the motion that we're trying to debate tonight.
Thank you for your point. And as raised at the beginning, I think you will hear from a number of the speakers here that we're arguing that it will be too late if we don't choose to act now. If I continue to raise the standards of health across the world, climate change will affect all disease areas. We have a huge stake in getting this right. As stated in the Lancet 2019 report, Countdown on Health and Climate Change, it states, and I'll quote directly, "A business-as-usual trajectory will result in a fundamentally altered world. The life of every child born today will be profoundly affected by climate change. Without accelerated intervention, this new era will come to define the health of people at every stage of their lives. Left unabated, climate change will define the health profile of the current and future generations." I think we all agree that health is a human right, and that we should use our influence to set standards and raise expectations. There's a huge demand from our stakeholders for us to drive change. Investors are increasingly looking to the longer term and not just the profit. But more importantly, the 70,000 people worldwide who work for us expect us as their employer to respond to their activism for the benefit of future generations, but also patients today. I've outlined some of the things that businesses who choose to be ahead of the curve can do to help. And what we want to ensure is that our planet does not exceed the 2 degrees of warming. But I welcome the urgency. I'm proud to be working alongside scientists to be able to play a role at this critical time. So I'm with Greta. Climate change is a fact, and we need to act with urgency. We're not here to debate the ifs, buts, maybes, or to celebrate greenwashing. And as a significant global player in our industry, we have the reach, the scale to drive change, but it has to be a collective ambition. We can't achieve this alone, and I call for partnership and action. We need a joined-up approach based on scientific evidence. To quote one of the speakers who joined you last year, Bill Gates, tackling climate change is going to demand historic levels of global cooperation. So coming back to the motion, perhaps to close, is it too late or are we all screwed? We now live in the 3rd month of this decade of change, and we need to ask ourselves every single day, are we doing enough? Are we breaking down the boundaries? Are we taking the right collective actions within and beyond our scope of influence? Am I doing enough to inspire others and learn from that collective effort? If not, and I say if not, then this precious planet that we all share is genuinely on fire, and we will be screwed. We have an ambition, we own a plan, but we can't do this alone. So I ask you to join me to act in a time where this is not business as usual. Mr. President, thank you.